do your own companies. Actually, you're encouraged to do your own startups, so I've done startups next to my academic career, and I've been an advisor to very large companies like Microsoft, Sun, HP, and others over the years. And at one moment, Amazon invited me to come give a talk about the kind of stuff that I was doing, because scale at Amazon is a challenge in those days. And I thought the same issue, bookshop. Now, and the moment actually when I visited Amazon, and I could got a glimpse of their kitchen, of the kind of things that were actually going on behind the scene, I completely changed my mind about Amazon. It was one of the world's largest distributed systems. And there is no enterprise architecture pattern that you won't find back within Amazon. You would think it's just a web shop. But in essence, think about all the technology that manages the warehouses, all the technology that goes into doing recommendations, all of the data warehousing. It's a massive transaction machine, while it is also, of course, a highly scalable web shop. And so when they later then, after that talk, and maybe some mutual admiration for what was going on there, they really thought that they could use someone. Well, they were at a phase where they were really good at scaling, but it was sort of intuitive. It was really 2003, 2004. No, I'm joining in 2004. They were really good at scaling. They've been in business for that for 9 years, and they developed great engineering skills. But they asked me to join to actually take a look at it more, if we could approach it from a more fundamental point of view. Could we have a whole set of principles against which we could develop scalable systems and a scalable infrastructure? And so as an academic, that's something that you're really skilled for. And my background was really good for that. And so they approached me and I said, yes, of course.
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Because, having the chance to actually influence one of the world's largest technology companies and give direction there is a unique challenge that nobody ever gets in their lives.
That's interesting, just to jump in there, because you said one of the world's largest technology companies. And I always have this problem with Amazon, and which is, I'm not quite certain what it is, because Amazon starts life as a bookstore. It then expands out from being a bookstore to becoming, like a sort of general retail store. Then, of course, then we get into the whole cloud. We can obviously talk about that. It's fascinating to know where that came from. Then now we're moving into the Kindle and now tablets. So, I'm guessing most people in here, if they're running startups, if they're running companies, are exploring one little niche and just mining that niche. Amazon is this huge company it's got bigger than everybody. What is Amazon?
From my point of view, Amazon is a technology company, and if nobody understands that, then we've done a really good job. Because I think Amazon's motto is to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. And I mean, if our customers understand that the only thing that we do is things for them, and we're not thinking about all the technologies that are behind them, then we've done a really good job. And maybe we have to go back into history. Many people thought that Jeff started a bookshop. And of course he did that, but what Jeff really did was, when he was not doing Amazon yet, was thinking about the phenomena of the internet and what can you do on the internet that you cannot do anywhere else. So it wasn't his idea to replicate a bookshop. He thought that there are things around books. So how many books are there? There are millions of books. Yeah, so you cannot print a catalog of them. And if you go to a really good bookshop, they may have 40,000 titles in stock. So the internet and technology were uniquely positioned to do something radically different around books. Namely, get everybody access to all of the books in the world. And to the extent to give them easy access to them. So unlocking all the potential of books and making it available for everyone. So that's a technology proposition, because the only way to do that is to use technology to build these indexes, to build the recommendations. And so I also like to say that we're a technology company that happens to do retail. But in essence, we're a technology company on the internet that uses the power of technology to do radically different things.
So just as an example, what are those kind of radically different things that you think that you were unable to do? Are you talking about things like recommendations and that sort of thing, or was there other things that were brewing along way back in the days, like the late 90s?
Well, imagine now, I mean, we all talk about reviews these days, we all talk about recommendations. That's just normal for every site to have it these days. When we started doing reviews, actually, publishers got pretty angry. They said, they approached Jeff and said, don't you want to sell this book? You know, well, what do you do if there's negative reviews? Remove them from your site. And the idea is if you're a truly customer-centric company, then it's more important to have your customers make the right buying decision, which may be not to buy something. And so you keep your customer centricity there and use all the technology to have those benefits. Recommendations are part of that, but also imagine something like, and it seems kind of silly, $25 free shipping. Yeah? For that, you actually need to develop a lot of technologies to be able to afford to do something like that. Or Amazon Prime, whatever. You have to reconfigure your complete delivery network to be able to give those kind of advantages to your customers. So you're continuously re-evaluating how you're doing things to be able to afford those kind of programs.
Now, as we saw, what, 2/3 of the audience here have used your cloud services in some way, shape, or another.
And the others also, but they just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. They're just using services they don't know. And I'm fascinated by this because, you know, here you are as a bookstore, started life as a bookstore, and then all of a sudden one day, you know, was there like, struck to be a moment, wow, we've got all these computers, we've got all this stuff, I find that fascinating. So how did that come about? How did you go from being, one day being a bookstore to the next being, you know, among the world's largest providers of cloud-based services?
Well, I think there's a few steps before that.
There were one or two.
There's a few.
Okay.
No, I think, but also not even thinking about the client side. I think one strong thinking that we've always had at Amazon is that we want to be a platform. Yeah, so we use the power of others to actually help us grow or to help grow our business. And if we have really unique technologies, we'll open them up. And cloud is one of them, but that's sort of the last phase to think about. For example, we wanted to have Earth's most largest catalog.
Right.
And we understood that we couldn't deliver that Earth's most largest catalog just by ourselves. So we invited other third-party merchants onto the platform. To build a platform, you allow others to sell on your platform, and of course the Amazon sellers, the buyers, they go like, do I need to compete on my own platform with the other customers? Yes, because it's the right thing to do for our customers. We didn't really believe that well in doing advertisement all over the place. So we developed a traffic platform, meaning that you can become an Amazon associate and you engage the whole world to be able to drive traffic to Amazon. And if that traffic then results in a sale, we actually be part of that. So the associate program, if you drive traffic to Amazon and actually that results in a purchase, you get 5 or 10% depending on what the product is. And so all of these things, we've got many of these steps along the way. Fulfillment by Amazon, we open up our warehouses. And so along the way, while we're developing all these highly scalable technologies, we also realized that we are developing things for our developers internally at scale that are unique. And that when we saw how much more agile our developers became with these technologies, we thought that this is unique. Why don't we start opening this up for the rest of the world to use as well? And to be honest, when we really originally were thinking about this, we were really thinking about young businesses. Like, you know, some kid up in Dublin College where she or he has a brilliant idea for the next Amazon, or for the next Google, or whatever. And that the only thing that's held her back is to actually not have access to unlimited capacity in the case that the service becomes really popular. And that was the origin of it, really be able to open up our pieces to drive innovation outside of Amazon, to allow a whole new type of businesses to arrive where you would not need access to enormous capital before you could get your business off the ground. Now, of course, within a few months, enterprises looked at this and knew immediately that this was way too good a proposition for them as well, and that's kind of the origin of where the whole cloud business started.
And are you able to say now, roughly speaking, you know, the contribution the cloud services made to the bottom? I mean, how does that divide up?
We do not.
It's working. It's working.
We do not break out those numbers.
You don't break out those numbers.
But we've never done that for any of our divisions, so that's not unique for this.
So if I'm right, so what you're saying is that the cloud actually came as a result of your own internal structures and your own internal needs, and then from that you thought, well, let's open this up to other people.
With a very long history behind that, you know, we've had this platform thinking within Amazon for a very long time. You know, when you develop unique technologies, and that might be even as I said about our warehouses, we know how to ship really well, how to do returns, how to do that very efficient. And if we looked at our third parties that were selling on our platform, the thing that they had most trouble with actually was, once they had the sale, they actually had to wrap up the book and actually bring it to the post office and send it. And we thought that if we would just open up our warehouses for others to use, regardless whether you're selling on Amazon or on eBay or whatever, that we could give a much better customer experience, both for our customers as well as for the sellers, where everybody's happy if we would just open up their technology. That's a very successful program. It's called Fulfillment by Amazon, and I think everybody's happy with that. It even means that some of our third parties are now able to be part of the Prime program because we can guarantee the delivery through Amazon's networks.
It's another one of these great examples. It seems one of the fascinating things about technology is how democratizing technology is, because if I'm running a small business and then I've got to do all of this fulfillment and stuff myself, and I've got to go by servers and all this, it becomes incredible. It actually just puts things beyond most people's range. And yet it seems to me that in your case here, it's about democratization.
All those things, absolutely, and I think it is all about that you as a business can focus on those things that really matter for your customer. And whether that is through fulfillment, or whether that is through the technology of the cloud, all of these things allow you to completely only focus on those things that matter. And in that sense, the whole concept of lean actually is sort of predating. So being really agile, focus on only those things that really matter for your customer, and rely on other core competencies to actually help you get there.
Now, you're a CTO, and so there is an argument, and this is your view on it, that really people like you are actually doing the CTO business out of work. Because ultimately, a lot of CTOs spend their time running server farms, running the technology of the company. I was talking to a CEO of a reasonable sized company, not a startup. He was saying really he runs two companies. He runs the company that he has, which is the products that he makes, and then off the back of that, he ends up running an IT company. Are you actually, is your vision effectively to kill your own business, your own trade? Do we need CTOs in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Of course. No, I think I've written about that in the past. I think there's sort of 4 different types of CTOs. The first 2 are really sort of more on the operational side. You really report to the CIO. It's the guys that keeps the lights on in the data center. But it depends a lot on what kind of company you have. If you look at technology companies, I think there's 2 different roles. One is that of big thinker. Yeah, often in startups, that's the guy that's the technologist, but that thinks about products from a technology point of view. And actually, when I joined Amazon, that was my role mainly, to really think about in a fundamental way how can technology help the business, and what are the unique technologies that we have developed such that we can go into new businesses. But there is also another role, and that's one that I'm going in more recently, is that of sort of external facing technologists. When you become a technology company, remember, we were already a technology company, but a company that delivers technology services to the outside world, the role for CTO becomes more of that really deeply engaging with your own customers and understanding whether the products that you're delivering actually do the right thing for customers. And given that we follow this very customer-centric model, on the Amazon Web Services, for example, we often deliver our services in a simple and humble manner with limited features as a first step. And then work very closely with our customers in a very rapid evaluation of that to bring the products in the direction where our customers think that they deliver most value for them. And so my role there is to talk with young businesses or engage with young businesses as well as the world's largest enterprises in how can our services really deliver the right value for them. And then take that back and be the voice of the customer internally. And drive
your sales guy. Everyone is sales.
Maybe. There's good examples in the past. I think Scott Dixon, when he was still at BEA, is a very good example of this. If you look at IBM, IBM has multiple CTOs for many of their business divisions. All have this similar kind of role. And so I have a dual role. I help think about architecture, help think about products internally and drive some of those. And then, but most importantly, and remember, Amazon, world's most customer-centric company, how do you do that in a technology world? What are the things that really matter for customers? What are the things that don't change for customers? You know, this is an important concept within Amazon. Often you think about, and this is general, it's not just for cloud services. Often you think about innovation doing radically new things. But at Amazon we've learned that innovation is mostly about really looking at your customers and what are the things that don't change for your customers. What are the things, and so for retail customers it's pricing. You know, nobody will say 10 years from now, I wish Amazon was a bit more expensive. You know, or you know, have a large catalog. People want choice. Have really good guarantees on delivery. Nobody wants more variability in delivery of their packages, and just convenience. And so each of those 4 components will never change for our customers. So everything, every effort that you put in those 4 components, yeah, will have a long lifetime effect for your customers. So really look at your customers and look at what the things are that don't change for them. And then build flywheels. Because flywheel take all that energy and will continue to deliver value for your customers. So the same thing is on the cloud side. What are the things that are really important to our customers there? What are the flywheels that we can build for them and then continue to pour energy into it?
I asked the audience here how many people have used Amazon Cloud. As I said, it's about 2/3 have. One, therefore, by extension, 1/3 haven't. What are the obstacles that you find? What are the bits still to this day the reasons that people go, oh, I don't do that cloud, or I might do that?
I think most of the obstacles are on one hand that there is a large group of incumbent businesses that feel threatened by cloud and are happy to send all sorts of FUD into the world. You know, where the history of FUD, I don't know if you know, so FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So the history of that is that. The history of that is that when IBM in the 60s had a great engineer called Amdahl, and Amdahl worked for them, and he got the idea about building a next mainframe. And the mainframe was more reliable, more scalable, and cheaper. And you know, IBM that one was not really interested in following that line. So Amdahl started his own business. And so the way that he got that his mothership origin then addressed that was by sending all sorts of uncertainties into the market, saying we will sue him, it's not reliable, and all this kind of thing. So what further, and then Amdahl was the first one to coin this term, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, as a business strategy for companies. Now we see the same thing around cloud. Yeah, so what was in that case? There is someone with a superior technology that really addresses the need of customers, yet the only way that somebody else counters that is by using FUD. And so a lot of things around cloud that you hear these days, it's not secure, it's not reliable, it's much more expensive than you actually really think. All of those things turn out to be myths. If you really scroll down, you look at them, and there's been sent into the world by, let's say, by the traditional hardware vendors that feel threatened by this business.
I'm going to pick you up on that. Okay, all of the people in the room who said that they use Amazon Web Services, raise your hand if you were affected by Amazon's outage.
Look at that.
So there's still quite a few. There's not as many as I was expecting. So you said at a recent talk in Berlin that if you design, if you build failure into your plan, then you'll never fail. Clearly there was a problem here in Ireland. First of all, do we yet know what happened? What were the lessons that you kind of got from that?
I think, first of all, I think we've, in great detail, put out, a post-mortem of the event that happened. And I'm actually very much encouraged to see that many people didn't raise their hand. First of all, it's inexcusable that outages happen. It's not like if you build for failure, does it mean that we can just fail? No, absolutely not. And we will not rest until these services are indistinguishable from perfect. Security and operational excellence are our #1 priorities and the #1 investment areas that we make. At the same time, we give customers tools such that they can actually manage a number of failure scenarios. Availability zones is one of those. Availability zones are, you should see them as separate buildings in separate flood zones. I think these days in Ireland that's important. Different seismographic areas. They're connected to different power grids, connected to different material networks, which allows our customers to build applications and systems that can survive a whole range of failure scenarios. If we don't, and so, you know, some of the learnings that we have out of these outages is that we have not done a good enough job, maybe at times, to really engage our customers and to teach them about these techniques and what they could do. I mean, some of our more advanced customers have things like Netflix has a chaos mode that periodically kills off processes such that they can actually survive. But many of our customers do not need to do these advanced things, just using the tools that we have. And we've opened up a whole new center called the Amazon Architecture Center that helps them build applications that are really scalable and really reliable using these multiple availability zones.
Well, I think Paddy has been our own chaos monkey up here. It's been fascinating. I've learned a lot more about Amazon than I knew at the start of this. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Guys, thanks a million. Our next two speakers are from the gaming industry. The first, John Vichy, recently sold his company, PopCap Games, to EA for $1.3 billion. And our other speaker, Mikael Head, is behind the infamous Rovio and Angry Birds, which has been downloaded over 400 million times around the world. So ladies and gentlemen, could I welcome to the stage Mikael Head and John Vichy. You're very welcome up on stage. I learned something exceptional. Well, first of all, actually, how many people have heard of Angry Birds? Okay, that's about 95%. How many people have heard of the sport hurling? So this is the more important question. John, I'd like to ask, you're a hurler. I can't believe this.
I am a hurler in Seattle, Washington, in the States.
I just love to know, how did you start playing hurling in Seattle, being
Well, we have a Dublin office, so I've been over here a whole bunch, and whenever I come over here, I go to Paddy Power, and I put a few euros on a hurling match and watch it. One day I was in the gym, and I was talking to some guy, and I said, yeah, I'm going to Dublin. He said, you've heard of hurling? And I said, oh yeah, it's the craziest sport I've ever seen. I'm on a hurling team, freaking try it. And I go, sure, it's the craziest sport I've ever seen. 4 years ago, and I'm still playing.
Because I might start with you. I'd love to, first of all, I'd love to just hear some of the highlights that Angry Birds in particular has been hitting over the last number of months. Some of the numbers you might share with the audience.
Right, so we have well over 400 million downloads now of Angry Birds, and every day we get some 300 million minutes of gameplay of Angry Birds around the world.
So I think this is essentially the fastest growing game in history.
Could very well be, yeah.
Right, wow. One of the things I'm always kind of fascinated by is, it's very easy in any conference, I think, that you go to kind of, dwell on the amazing things that some of these guys have done. But I think what's important to remember is that they all started somewhere. And for so many people in the audience here, you guys started somewhere. And John, if I might just come to you first, and then we might come back across. I'm wondering, we sold you EA recently. It was incredible. You built an incredible company, but it started out somewhere, and you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. So for some of the entrepreneurs here today, I'd be interested. What's been the single biggest lesson that you've learned?
I think the single biggest lesson has been just keep at it. There were definitely times in the company where we're like, wow, we got this company and we're making $3,000 a month for 3 people. Doesn't really pay bills, and we just kept it. We kept trying to make games, regardless of like friends, kept them for partners, and that allowed us to discover the downloadable games business model, which was really great for the company. you know, that as that flattened off, we just kept at it and found a different business and kept growing and found new businesses. So I think it's the most important lesson is don't give up, just keep doing it.
And Miguel, for you?
One of the very important lessons we learned was that when you do release your product, when we came out with Angry Birds, we really polished the game to a ridiculous extent, and I feel that